Okay, let's start. Number 1. Immunity to death. In 1917, a scholar named R.H. Charles published the first widely available English translation of a text that had been missing from your Bible for over 1,500 years. The book was First Enoch, chapter 69, verse 11, contained a single claim that no church has ever put on a wall. For men were created exactly like the angels, to the intent that they should continue pure and righteous, and death, which destroys everything, could not have taken hold of them. In this text, that is a design specification. Humans were built to the same blueprint as the angels. Death was not the default. Death was the intruder, something that broke through a system that was constructed specifically to keep it out. The verse does not describe death as a punishment for disobedience, a consequence of sin, or a natural feature of biological life. It describes death as a breach. Something got in that was not supposed to get in. The verse continues, "But through this their knowledge they are perishing, and through this power it is consuming me." The knowledge referenced here is not general. The chapters surrounding this verse name the teachers individually, a group the text calls the Watchers, 200 angels who descended together on Mount Hermon and began showing humanity things the text says they were never designed to receive. Each teaching looks like an upgrade: medicine, writing, metalworking, cosmetics, astrology. The text treats every single one of them as a loss, not because the knowledge was inherently evil, but because each piece of knowledge replaced something the human body was already doing on its own. Medicine replaced self-healing. Cosmetics replaced bodily radiance. Writing replaced direct knowing. The pattern is the same every time. Knowledge in, equipment out. The Watchers delivered tools. The body shed the functions. The tools were built to replace. And the text names the angel responsible for each one. So what switched it off? That question is what the rest of this list answers. Ability by ability, angel by angel, across 10 specific functions the text says the human body once had and no longer does. The chapter does not generalize. It catalogs. And the catalog has survived longer than most civilizations. Here's where it gets strange. The Book of Enoch was not lost. It was removed. The Council of Laodicea in 364 AD formally excluded it from the biblical canon. Before that council, the text was canonical enough that the New Testament itself quotes it by name. Jude chapter 1, verses 14 and 15 cite Enoch directly as a prophet and reproduce a passage from the book. The text those verses reference was then stripped from the collection that contains them. A book quoted as Scripture, inside Scripture, was taken out of Scripture. Every major Western tradition dropped it. One church refused. The Ethiopian Orthodox Tewahedo Church kept the Book of Enoch in their biblical canon, copied in Ge'ez, the ancient liturgical language of Ethiopia, generation after generation for 1,500 years, while the rest of the world forgot it existed. When the Dead Sea Scrolls were pulled from the caves at Qumran in 1947, 11 copies of First Enoch were among them. 11. That is more copies than most books that stayed in the Bible. The Aramaic fragments of the Book of the Watchers, chapters 1 through 36, date to the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, roughly 200 years before the Gospels were composed. Whoever wrote this material was not borrowing from Christianity. Christianity grew up alongside it, quoted it, and then removed it. When R.H. Charles compared the Ethiopian Ge'ez manuscripts to the Qumran Aramaic fragments, the verdict confirmed what the Ethiopian church had maintained all along. The claims matched. The same verses, the same order, the same specific details, consistent across 3 languages and more than 2,000 years of independent transmission. George Nicholsberg and James Vanderkam published the definitive modern commentary on the Hermeneia series and reached the same conclusion. The text had not been altered. It had been preserved. The text that was removed from the Western Bible contains a verse that says, "You were built like the angels, and death was never supposed to reach you." The chapters that surround it name, one by one, the beings who dismantled that design, the specific ability each one stripped, and the specific teaching each one delivered as the replacement. Most of what follows has never appeared in a church, a synagogue, or a mosque. But it sat in sealed jars in the Judean desert for 2,200 years, and when scholars pulled it out and translated it, it matched the Ethiopian copies that had been read aloud in services every year for a millennium and a half. The first ability the text says was stripped was not cognitive, it was not spiritual. It was something you could see on a human body, and when it surfaced one final time in a newborn child, it terrified the father so completely that he fled his own house and traveled to the ends of the earth to ask his grandfather what was wrong with his son. Number 2. Bodily radiance. The birth is described in 1 Enoch chapter 106, and it reads like nothing else in the text. A woman delivers a child. His body is white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose. His hair and his long locks are white as wool. He opens his eyes, and the entire house lights up like the sun. The whole room is bright. Then the child stands up in the midwife's hands, opens his mouth, and speaks. The father's name is Lamech. His reaction is not pride. It is not wonder. It is terror. He goes to his own father, Methuselah, and says, "I have begotten a strange son, diverse from and unlike man, and resembling the sons of the God of heaven." Lamech believes his wife has been with one of the watchers. He believes the child is a hybrid. He is so frightened that he cannot stay in the house with his own son. Methuselah travels to the ends of the earth to find Enoch and ask him directly what this child is. Enoch investigates. His answer is specific. The child is legitimate. The child is fully human. The child's name will be Noah, and he will survive the flood that is coming. The radiance is not angelic blood surfacing in a hybrid. It is a human trait surfacing one last time. And no, that is not a paraphrase. That is what the text says. 1 Enoch 106, verses 2 through 5, then 10 through 18, in the R.H. Charles translation, available on sacred-texts.com and cross-confirmed against the Gaze manuscripts and the Qumran Aramaic fragments by Nicholsburg and Vanderkam. The birth scene is consistent across every surviving version. What the text implies is this: what Noah displayed at birth was not extraordinary, it was original. It was what human bodies used to do before the Watchers began their work. The radiance was the factory setting. Noah was the last unit off the line before the line shut down. Here's where it gets strange. The angel the text blames for destroying this ability is Azazel, and his method was not violence, it was cosmetics. 1 Enoch chapter 8 verse 1. And Azazel taught men to make swords, and knives, and shields, and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them, and bracelets, and ornaments, and the use of antimony, and the beautifying of the eyelids, and all kinds of costly stones, and all coloring tinctures. Antimony. The beautifying of the eyelids, coloring tinctures, the oldest cosmetics in the archaeological record. Azazel is credited with inventing weapons and makeup in the same verse, and the text makes no distinction between the two. Both are replacements. Weapons replaced peaceful nature. Cosmetics replaced something the body was producing on its own. The logic of the text is not subtle. If an angel had to teach humans how to beautify their bodies were already beautiful in a way that did not require teaching. The cosmetics are not the gift. The cosmetics are the receipt, the proof that something was there before them and is no longer there after. This is the pattern that runs through every name on the list. Every teaching from the Watchers follows the same structure. An angel arrives. An angel teaches a skill. The skill replaces a built-in function. The function disappears. The teaching remains. The ability does not. And every time, the body was left with something that could not do what the original did. Noah's birth is the text's proof of concept. A child is born with the original hardware still intact, and his own father cannot recognize it because the baseline has shifted so far that the original design looks alien. Lamech sees angelic traits and runs. Enoch sees human traits and weeps. The reader is left with a question the text never answers directly. If Noah was the last, how many generations back do you have to go to find a time when every child looked like that? The Noah birth scene will come back later in this list, because the radiance was not the only original trait that child displayed. There was something else he did in that room, something that connects to a different ability on this list, and a different loss entirely. But that is getting ahead of the story. What matters here is the first confirmed mechanism. Azazel taught cosmetics. The body stopped producing its own light, and the body never produced that light again. And the last time the original design surfaced in a human child, the child's own father thought he was looking at a monster. Azazel stripped the body's appearance. But he was not the only Watcher rewriting human biology. Another angel's gift was about to erase something humans had never thought about, because until that teaching arrived, no human being had ever been sick. Number 3. Self-healing. 1 Enoch, chapter 8, verse 3. Semjaza taught enchantments and root cuttings, two words that, in the framework of this text, rewrote what the human body could do. Root cuttings, the preparation of plant material for medicinal use, the harvesting, drying, and application of roots, bark, and herbs to treat injury and disease. The oldest form of pharmacology, the origin of medicine. Semjaza is not a minor figure in this text. He is the leader. 1 Enoch chapter 6 names him as the one who organized the descent. 200 angels gathered on the summit of Mount Hermon, and Semjaza was the one who proposed the oath. He made them all swear together so that no single watcher would bear the punishment alone. He coordinated the descent, organized the pact, and then, according to chapter 8, began teaching. And the first thing the leader of the Watchers taught humanity was how to heal their bodies. But here's the detail that everyone missed at the time, and it sits right there in the structure of the verse. If the leader of the Watchers needed to teach humans medicine, then humans were not practicing medicine before he arrived. If root cuttings had to be introduced from outside, the body was handling the problem internally. The teaching is the evidence. The fact that medicine had to be delivered is the proof that the body was doing the job on its own. Think about that for a second. The text does not say Semjaza improved an existing practice. It does not say he refined a crude method. It says he taught it. He introduced it. Root cuttings were new information, which means injury and disease were being handled by something else. And the moment the external remedy arrived, the internal system that preceded it was no longer necessary. This is where the pattern becomes impossible to ignore. Azazel taught cosmetics. The body's radiance disappeared. Semjaza taught medicine. The body's self-healing disappeared. Every gift from the Watchers came at a cost. The body received a tool and surrendered a function, and every time, the function it surrendered did more than the tool it received. Cosmetics do not do what radiance did. Medicine does not do what a self-healing body did. The replacements are weaker than what they replaced, and the text knows it. Through this their knowledge they are perishing. That is verse 11 again. The knowledge is doing the damage. Not because it is forbidden knowledge, not because God is punishing curiosity, but because the knowledge itself is the mechanism of the downgrade. Each teaching activates because the body accepts the external tool and deactivates the internal one. The trade is automatic. The Watchers do not have to sabotage anything, they just have to teach. Enchantments and root cuttings. The enchantments are listed alongside the root cuttings without separation, which means the text treats both as part of the same system. Whatever Semjaza taught included not just the physical preparation of plant remedies, but something else, some adjacent practice that the Charles translation renders as enchantments, incantations, spoken formulas. The suggestion is that the original healing system was not purely physical. It had a component that the text associates with speech, with spoken intention, with something the voice could do that the body responded to. When that system was replaced by external root cuttings, both components went silent. The physical self-repair and whatever the voice was doing alongside it. 3 abilities in, and the pattern is fully established. Radiance gone, replaced by cosmetics. Self-healing gone, replaced by medicine. Knowledge in, equipment out. Every gift a downgrade. Every teaching a trade the recipient did not know they were making. If this is landing for you, subscribe, because what comes next is worse. The body could no longer heal itself, but the next loss did not change what the body could do. It changed what humans were willing to do to each other, and the text assigns this 1 to 2 angels, not one. One of them taught the weapons. The other one is the same angel the text blames for leading Eve astray, and his name is not the one you learned in Sunday school. Number 4. Peaceful nature. 1 Enoch chapter 69, verse 6. And the third was named Gadriel. He it is who showed the children of men all the blows of death, and he led astray Eve, and showed the weapons of death to the sons of men, the shield and the coat of mail, and the sword for battle, and all the weapons of death to the children of men. Read that verse again slowly. The angel who introduced lethal violence to the human species is the same angel who led Eve astray. 2 origin stories, 2 of the most foundational events in the entire biblical tradition, assigned to one being. And his name is not the serpent, not Satan, not Lucifer. His name is Gadriel, a name that does not appear in any mainstream Bible, because the book that contains it was removed from the canon 1600 years ago. Gadriel showed the children of men all the blows of death, not some of them, all of them. Every method of killing another human being traces back, in this text, to a single angelic instructor who delivered the full curriculum in one lesson. He showed the weapons of death, the shield, the coat of mail, the sword, defensive and offensive in the same package, because the text treats them as the same invention. You do not need armor unless you also have swords. They arrive together. They are the same downgrade. But Godriel was not working alone. 1 Enoch chapter 8 verse 1 returns to Azazel, the same angel who taught cosmetics, and adds a second inventory. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them. Azazel taught metallurgy. He taught humans how to extract metals from the earth and forge them into blades. Gadriel taught the concept. Azazel taught the manufacturing. 2 angels, 1 loss. Gadriel opened the door to violence and delivered the tactical knowledge. Azazel built the industrial base. Between them, they replaced something the text implies was the original condition of the species, a nature that did not include the capacity for organized killing. If 2 separate angels had to teach humans how to wage war, then war was not something humans did on their own. Peace was the default. Violence was the upgrade that arrived from outside, and the moment it arrived, the original condition stopped functioning. The logic follows the same pattern as every item before it. If cosmetics had to be taught, radiance existed. If medicine had to be taught, self-healing existed. If weapons had to be taught, peaceful nature existed. The teaching is the evidence of what was there before, and each time the replacement is permanent. The text does not describe a temporary corruption, it describes a one-way trade. You'd think someone in the early church would have raised a question about why this text was being excluded from the canon. A text that names the angel responsible for the fall of Eve, that provides an alternative origin for human violence, that assigns specific angelic instructors to the introduction of warfare. You'd think at least one council member at Laodicea in 364 AD would have argued that this material was worth preserving, if only for its account of how violence entered the world. If anyone did, the record does not reflect it. The Gadriel verse also contains a detail that sits quietly next to the weapons inventory and has generated almost no scholarly commentary in 2,000 years. He led astray Eve, 4 words. In the canonical Bible, the serpent in Genesis 3 is not identified as an angel. The Book of Enoch names the angel. It gives him a job title, a specific domain of instruction, and a connection to the fall that Genesis leaves ambiguous. Gadriel is not the serpent. He is the engineer behind the serpent. And the text places his work on Eve in the same verse as his work on the weapons, as if the 2 events were the same project, 2 phases of one assignment aimed at dismantling the same thing. 4 abilities gone: radiance, self-healing, peaceful nature, and underneath all of them, the immunity to death that verse 11 said was the original condition. But the next angel in chapter 69 delivered something that, according to the text, cost humans something even more fundamental than peace or healing. He gave them a tool so universal that no civilization in history has ever existed without it, and the verse that introduces it says humans were not created for such a purpose. The text calls it a catastrophe, and the tool is one you use today. Number 5. Innate knowing. 1 Enoch chapter 69, verses 9 and 10. And the 4th was named Penemu. He taught the children of men the bitter and the sweet, and he taught them all the secrets of their wisdom. And he instructed mankind in writing with ink and paper, and thereby many sinned from eternity to eternity and until this day. The text calls writing a sin, not metaphorically, not in a parable. The verse says Penemu taught writing and thereby many sinned. The invention of written language, the single technology that every civilization in human history has depended on, is treated in this verse as a catastrophe that has not stopped producing damage since the day it was introduced. Then comes the line that no one talks about. Verse 10 continues, "For men were not created for such a purpose, to give confirmation to their good faith with pen and ink." Stop there. Read that sentence one more time. Humans were not created for the purpose of confirming their good faith with pen and ink. The text is saying that before Penemu, humans did not need to write things down to verify what was true. They did not need contracts. They did not need records. They did not need written confirmation of anything. And the reason they did not need these things is not that they were primitive or that their memories were better. The reason is that they had a way of knowing things directly, without mediation, without an external tool. Writing exists in the framework of this text because direct knowing broke. pen, and paper are the prosthetic. They replaced an ability so fundamental that the text considers its loss a sin that has not ceased from the day it happened. Every record you have ever trusted, every contract you have ever signed, every historical document you have ever cited as proof exists in the text's accounting because the original method of verification failed. Writing is the backup system that became the only one left. Penamu also taught the bitter and the sweet, which Charles translates as the knowledge of opposites, the capacity to distinguish between good and evil, pleasure and pain, benefit and harm. This is a different claim than Genesis 3, where the knowledge of good and evil comes from eating the fruit of a tree. In 1 Enoch, it comes from an angel, and it is delivered alongside writing as part of the same lesson. The implication is that the original design did not require the conscious evaluation of good and evil because the body already knew. The discernment was built in. Penamu externalized it, turned it into something that required analysis, comparison, and recording. What had been automatic became deliberate, and what had been instant became slow. Here is where the pattern reaches full power. Cosmetics replaced radiance, medicine replaced self-healing, weapons replaced peaceful nature, writing replaced direct knowing. Every gift from the Watchers follows the identical structure. Each time an external tool arrived and an internal ability stopped working, the tool is weaker than the ability it replaced, but it is the only option left after the replacement is complete. Humanity cannot go back to radiance once cosmetics exist, because radiance is gone. Humanity cannot go back to direct knowing once writing exists, because direct knowing is gone. The trait is permanent, and it always favors the tool over the function. The Watchers upgraded humanity, and each upgrade cost them something they could never recover, because by the time they understood what had changed, they no longer had the equipment to perceive the loss. Every civilization you have ever studied, every library that was ever built, every alphabet that was ever carved into stone, is in the text's framework a monument to an ability that no longer exists. What comes next is the part that still doesn't make sense. The next angel in chapter 69 did not strip a physical ability and did not replace a cognitive one. He did something the text treats as categorically different from everything before it. He showed humans something they had no name for, something they had never experienced, something they had never needed to defend against. And the reason they had never experienced it, according to the verse, is that they were built to be completely immune. Number 6. Immunity to spirits and demons. 1 Enoch, chapter 69, verse 12. And the fifth was named Casdaja. This is he who showed the children of men all the wicked smitings of spirits and demons, and the smitings of the embryo in the womb, that it may pass away, and the smitings of the soul, the bites of the serpent, and the smitings which befall through the noontide heat. Read that verse carefully, because what it says is not what it appears to say on a first pass. The verse says, Casdaja showed humans the smitings of spirits and demons, not that he sent spirits, not that he turned demons loose. He showed humans that spirits and demons could smite them. He revealed to them that this category of attack existed. That distinction changes everything about what the verse means. Before Casdaja, according to this text, humans had no knowledge of demonic attack, and the reason they had no knowledge of it is not that demons did not exist. The text is full of spiritual beings. The reason humans had no knowledge of demonic attack is that they were impervious to it. The attacks could not land, the smitings could not reach them. The body was sealed against spiritual interference the same way it was sealed against death, against disease, against the need for cosmetics. Immunity to spirits was part of the original design. What Casdaja did was not an attack, it was a demonstration. He showed humans that they could be hit, and the showing was the breaking. The act of revealing the vulnerability created the vulnerability. Before the knowledge, the shield held. After the knowledge, the shield was gone. The teaching manufactured the danger it described. This is the most disturbing pattern in the entire list. Every other watcher on this list delivered an external tool that replaced an internal function. Azazel gave cosmetics, and radiance departed. Semjaza gave medicine, and self-healing departed. Penamu gave writing, and direct knowing departed. In each case, the mechanism was replacement. The tool arrived, the function left. Casdaja did not deliver a replacement tool. He delivered awareness, and awareness alone was sufficient to destroy the immunity. The verse lists 3 specific categories of attack that Casdaja opened. The first is the smitings of spirits and demons. The second is the smitings of the embryo in the womb, that it may pass away. The third is the smitings of the soul, the bites of the serpent, and the smitings which befall through the noontide heat. The second category is miscarriage. The text attributes miscarriage to angelic teaching. The body's reproductive invulnerability, its ability to carry a child to term without the possibility of loss, was part of the original design. Kasdeja's teaching opened the door to the smiting of the embryo in the womb. Before his lesson, the text says, that door did not exist. The third category is stranger still. The smitings of the soul, the bites of the serpent, the smitings which befall through the noontide heat. The Charles translation renders these as a single inventory, but they describe three distinct phenomena: damage to the soul itself, serpent bites, which in the broader Enochic tradition carry both literal and symbolic weight, and heat sickness, illness that arrives with the noon sun, a phenomenon well documented in the ancient Near East and associated in multiple cultures with demonic visitation. The text collapses all of these into one origin. Kasdeja showed them, and from that moment forward they were real. Put it plainly, a human being before Kasdeja could not be touched by a spirit, could not lose a pregnancy, could not be bitten by a serpent in the soul damage sense the text describes, and could not be struck down by the invisible forces that arrive in the heat of the day. After Kasdeja, all of those things became possible. Not because Kasdeja broke the shield with a weapon, because he showed the occupant that the shield existed, and the showing was the breaking. 5 abilities gone. The body could no longer resist death, sustain its own radiance, heal itself, maintain peace, know things directly, or defend against spiritual attack. The original design had been stripped on every level, physical, cognitive, spiritual, but the original design did not disappear all at once. It surfaced one final time, in the most famous birth in the pre-flood world. A child opened his mouth in a midwife's hands and spoke in full sentences to the Lord of Righteousness. His father heard the voice and ran from the room. Not because the child was screaming, but because a newborn was talking, and no one in that generation had ever seen a human being do that before. Number 7. Pre-installed language. We have already been in this room. We have already seen this child. Section 2 described what Noah looked like when he was born. Now listen to what he did. 1 Enoch chapter 106, verses 2 and 3. The child's body is white as snow, red as the blooming of a rose, hair white as wool, eyes that light up the house like the sun. We covered that. Then the verse continues. And thereupon he arose in the hands of the midwife, opened his mouth, and conversed with the Lord of Righteousness. A newborn child, still wet from birth, stands up in the midwife's hands, opens his mouth, and speaks. Not a sound, not a cry, conversed. The RH. Charles' translation uses the word conversed, which means sustained speech, back and forth, a dialogue. This child, before his umbilical cord was cut, spoke in complete sentences to God. Lamech's terror, which was already severe when he saw the radiance, becomes something else entirely when he hears the voice. This is not a father who is merely surprised. This is a man who believes he is looking at something that should not exist. He goes to Methuselah, his words recorded in verse 5 and onward. I have begotten a strange son, diverse from and unlike man, and resembling the sons of the God of heaven. Lamech believes the child is a watcher hybrid. He believes his wife has been with one of the fallen angels. The child looks wrong, and now it is speaking at birth, and Lamech cannot process what he is seeing, because no child in his generation does this. Methuselah does not dismiss the concern. He travels to find Enoch, who has already been taken to the ends of the earth. The real question is what Enoch told him when he arrived. Enoch examines the situation. His verdict, delivered in verses 16 through 18, is unambiguous. The child is not a hybrid. The child is fully human. The child is legitimate. The traits are not evidence of angelic contamination. They are evidence of something else entirely. The text never uses the phrase pre-installed language. That is a modern frame placed on what the verse describes. But what the verse describes is a newborn with full speech capacity. Not learned speech, not acquired speech. Speech that was present and functional from the moment of birth. The child did not babble and then gradually acquire language over years of exposure and imitation. The child spoke at birth, to God, in a sustained conversation. In the framework of this text, that capacity was not miraculous. It was original. It was what human infants were designed to do before the corruption of the bloodline through watcher intermixing degraded the species over generations. Noah was born at the extreme end of that degradation, the last generation before the flood, and he was the last child to display the original trait. After Noah, the text records no other birth like this. The ability was gone. The emotional weight of this section is not in the ability itself, it is in Lamech's reaction. A father runs from his own son. He runs because his son looks the way humans used to look, and he has no frame of reference for it. The original design has been absent for so many generations that when it finally surfaces one last time, the people who see it cannot recognize it. They mistake the original for the alien. They mistake the factory setting for the malfunction. Lamech sees a watcher. Enoch sees a human, the last one who will ever come off the line intact. Noah is the text proof that these abilities were real. He is the last working prototype. Everything the list has described up to this point, the radiance, the speech, the immunity, exists in one child, in one room, in one generation. And the people in that room are too far removed from the original design to understand what they are looking at. If you want to know what else this text says was stripped, subscribe, because the next 3 items are the biggest. The next one was not taken by a single angel. It was taken by 6 of them, working 6 different domains, dismantling a single sense so completely that it took 6 separate teachers to replace what one faculty used to handle alone. Noah was the last human born with the original voice, but while his generation was watching a child glow and speak in a midwife's hands, 6 angels had already been working on something else for centuries. They had been teaching humans how to read the sky, one piece at a time, star by star, planet by planet, season by season. And the reason 6 of them were needed is that the sense they were replacing did not require any teaching at all. Number 8. Celestial perception. While all of this was happening, while the radiance was fading, and the healing was stopping, and the violence was starting, while one angel after another was stripping the body of its original functions, 6 angels were already dismantling something above. They were not working in the body, they were working in the sky. 1 Enoch chapter 8, verse 3. Barakajal taught astrology, Kokabel the constellations, Ezekiel the knowledge of the clouds, Arakiel the signs of the earth, Shamsiel the signs of the sun, and Sariel the course of the moon. 6 angels, 6 subjects, 1 ability they all replaced. This is the only item on the list that required 6 instructors. Every other ability was stripped by 1 angel, or at most 2. Celestial perception took 6, and the reason is embedded in the structure of the verse. Each angel taught 1 piece of the sky. Barakijal took astrology, the mathematical relationship between celestial positions and earthly events. Kokabel took the constellations, the identification and cataloging of star patterns. Ezekiel took cloud reading, the interpretation of atmospheric formations. Arakiel took earth signs, the reading of terrestrial markers that connect to celestial cycles. Shamsiel took the sun, its signs, its movements, its seasonal positions. Sariel took the moon, its course, its phases, its calendar. 6 domains, 6 teachers, 6 separate fields of instruction, each one teaching humans how to calculate something they had previously perceived directly. The text does not say these angels corrupted an existing practice. It says they taught. Each subject had to be introduced from scratch, which means humans were not doing astronomy before the Watchers arrived. They were not charting stars. They were not mapping constellations. They were not tracking the moon's phases with notation systems. All of that had to be taught. But the text also makes clear that humans were not ignorant of the sky before the Watchers came. Enoch himself, in the astronomical sections of the book, chapters 72 through 82, demonstrates knowledge of celestial mechanics so precise that modern scholars have used his calendar system to reconstruct ancient astronomical understanding. Enoch knew the sky. He did not learn it from charts. The knowledge predates the teaching. What the 6 angels replaced was not ignorance. It was a different kind of knowledge, a perceptive knowledge, a sense that did not require instruments, calculations, or instruction. The human body, in the text's framework, could read the sky the way it could read its own internal state, directly, without mediation, without an external tool. When Barakajal taught astrology, he did not add something new. He gave humans a crude external substitute for something they had been doing natively. The modern reader dismisses astrology as superstition, and by modern standards that dismissal is reasonable. But the text is not defending astrology. The The text is saying astrology is a degraded replacement for something better. The original perception was precise, unified, and required no interpretation. What the six angels taught was fragmented, approximate, and required years of study to approach what the body used to do in an instant. Astrology is what was left after the original sense broke. And the naming precision matters. The text does not say, some angels taught about the heavens. It names each one. Barakijal, Kokabel, Ezekiel, Arakiel, Shamsiel, Sariel. It assigns specific domains to specific beings. This is a text that catalogs. It records. It functions more like an engineering incident report than a mythological narrative. When a system fails and you file a report, you name the component that failed and the party responsible. That is what 1 Enoch chapter 8 is doing. 6 components of a unified perceptual system. 6 angels who each took credit for breaking one of them. After Barakijal, no human could read the stars directly. After Kokabel, no human could perceive constellation patterns without studying them first. After Shamsiel, the sun's cycles required calculation. After Sariel, the moon's course required tracking. What had been a single integrated sense was now 6 separate academic disciplines, each requiring years of training to approximate what the original body did without thinking about it. 7 abilities gone. The body was stripped on every level: physical radiance, self-healing, peaceful nature, cognitive, direct knowing, celestial perception, spiritual, immunity to spirits and demons, pre-installed language, gone with the corruption of the bloodline. But the next loss was not delivered by a fallen angel at all. This one came from God himself. And it explains a pattern hidden in plain sight across the oldest genealogy in the Bible, a decline so steady you can plot it on a graph, dropping from 930 years to 70 across 40 generations. Number 9. Access to the Tree of Life. Adam lived 930 years. Seth lived 912. Enosh lived 905. Kenan lived 910. Mahalalel lived 895. Jared lived 962. Methuselah lived 969. That is Genesis chapter 5, the oldest genealogy in the Bible, and the numbers are consistent. 900 years, give or take, generation after generation, with no significant decline across the first 10 patriarchs. Something was sustaining those lifespans. Something was holding steady. Then the flood. After the flood, the numbers collapse. Shem, 600 years. Arpachshad, 438. Shelah, 433. Eber, 464. Peleg, 239. That is the first cliff. A drop from 600 to 239 in 5 generations. Then it accelerates. Ru, 239. Sarug, 230. Nahor, 148. Terah, 205. Abraham, 175. Isaac, 180. Jacob, 147. Joseph, 110. Moses, 120. David, 70. That's not a typo, by the way. The lifespan data in Genesis drops from 930 years to 70 years across roughly 40 generations. Plotted on a graph, and what you see is not random variation. It is a discharge curve. Something was providing power. The power source was removed, and the system drained at a consistent rate until it reached the baseline where it sits today. First Enoch names the power source. Chapter 25, verses 4 through 6. Enoch is shown a high mountain whose summit is like the throne of God, and on that mountain is a tree. And as for this fragrant tree, no mortal is permitted to touch it till the great judgment, when he shall take vengeance on all and bring everything to its consummation forever. It shall then be given to the righteous and holy. Its fruit shall be for food to the elect, and they shall live a long life on earth, such as thy fathers lived. The tree of life, not a metaphor, not a symbol of God's blessing. A physical tree on a physical mountain whose fruit sustained the centuries-long lifespans described in Genesis 5. They shall live a long life on earth, such as thy fathers lived. The text is explicit. The tree's fruit is what produced the 900-year lifespans. When the tree was placed beyond mortal reach, the lifespans began their decline. This is the 9th item on the list, and it breaks the pattern. Every ability before this one was stripped by a fallen angel. Azazel took radiance, Semjaza took self-healing. Gadriel and Azazel took peaceful nature. Penemu took direct knowing. Kazdeja took spiritual immunity. The corruption of the bloodline took pre-installed language. Barakijal and his group took celestial perception. 8 abilities stripped by watchers. The tree of life was not stripped by a watcher. It was sealed by God. No mortal is permitted to touch it till the great judgment. This is God's own action. The same judgment that bound the watchers and punished the corruption also sealed the tree. The same event that addressed the problem also removed the life support. The watchers broke the body's internal systems. God removed the external system that was compensating for the damage. Think about what that means in the text's framework. The tree was not a reward for good behavior. It was infrastructure. It was the mechanism that kept the body running at its original specifications, even as the watchers were stripping it of one ability after another. Radiance gone, healing gone, peaceful nature gone, but the tree's fruit was still available, and the lifespans held steady at 900 years through the first 10 generations of Genesis 5. The body was degrading internally, but the external support was compensating. When God sealed the tree, the compensation stopped. The lifespans began dropping because the degraded body no longer had its backup power source. The decline across Genesis is not a mystery the text leaves unexplained. It is a documented consequence of a documented action. God sealed the tree after the judgment. The discharge curve begins immediately after the flood, which is the event that follows the judgment. The tree still exists. The text says so. It shall then be given to the righteous and holy. The access was removed, not the tree. The fruit is still there. The mountain is still there. The promise is that access will be restored at the end, and when it is, the lifespans will return to what they were. Such as thy fathers lived, 900 years. That is what the text calls the human specification when the tree is available and the body is running at its original settings. 9 abilities gone. 8 stripped by fallen angels. 1 sealed by God's own judgment. The body has been dismantled from the inside out, its internal systems replaced by crude external tools, and its external life support sealed behind a judgment that has not been lifted. But the text says one more thing was taken, and the 10th item answers the question that was planted in the very first verse of this list. If humans were created exactly like the angels, if they were built to the same specification, then the angels do something that the text says humans used to do too. Something that would have made the two species indistinguishable. And the names of the angels who sealed it shut are written in chapter 10. Number 10. Interdimensional travel. 1 Enoch chapter 10 verse 4. And again the Lord said to Raphael, Bind Azazel hand and foot, and cast him into the darkness, and make an opening in the desert, which is in Dudael, and cast him therein. And place upon him rough and jagged rocks, and cover him with darkness, and let him abide there forever, and cover his face that he may not see light. That is the sentence God spoke to Raphael. The angel who taught cosmetics and weapons, the one who stripped radiance from the human body and replaced peaceful nature with metallurgy, is bound hand and foot, thrown into a hole in the desert, covered with rough stones, and sealed in darkness permanently. Azazel's punishment is not death, it is containment. He is put somewhere, and the door is closed. Then Michael receives his orders. 1 Enoch 10, verses 11 through 13. Go, bind Semjaza and his associates who have united themselves with women so as to have defiled themselves with them in all their uncleanness. And when their sons have slain one another, and they have seen the destruction of their beloved ones, bind them fast for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth, till the day of their judgment and of their consummation, till the judgment that is forever and ever is consummated. Semjaza, the leader, the one who organized the descent, the one who taught medicine and enchantments, is bound for 70 generations in the valleys of the earth. His associates are bound with him. The text does not describe a symbolic punishment. It describes a physical restructuring of the boundary between realms. The watchers who had crossed freely between the angelic world and the human world are seized, bound, and placed in locations that are then sealed. The abyss is dug, the darkness is prepared. Angels are posted as guards. The crossing points are closed. Here's where it gets strange. This judgment is not just about punishing the watchers, it is about shutting down the traffic. Before the judgment, the text describes a world in which humans and angels interact physically, in real space, in real time. The watchers descend on Mount Hermon. They take wives. They produce children. They teach in person. Enoch himself travels physically through the dimensions, guided by angelic escorts, and describes what he sees in geographic terms: mountains, valleys, rivers of fire, pillars of heaven, the place where the luminaries emerge. These are not metaphors in the text, they are itineraries. Enoch walks through them. After the judgment, none of that happens. No human physically crosses between realms in the text after the binding of the Watchers. The gates are sealed. The guards are posted. The geography that Enoch walked through is no longer accessible. The ability to travel between dimensions, to physically move from the human world into the angelic world and back, an ability the text shows Enoch exercising repeatedly across dozens of chapters, was the last function sealed. And it was sealed not by a fallen angel but by God's own judgment, carried out by Raphael and Michael on direct orders. Interdimensional travel was part of the original human design. The text's logic is clear. If humans were created exactly like the angels, and the angels move between dimensions, then humans could move between dimensions. Enoch demonstrates this capacity throughout the book. He goes, he sees, he returns, he reports. The text treats this as unremarkable, the same way it treats Noah's radiance and speech as unremarkable. These are not miracles. They are demonstrations of what the equipment could do when it was still intact. The judgment shut the gates. The Watchers were bound. The crossing points were sealed. And from that moment forward, every contact between the two worlds in the text happens through exactly one channel. Not physical travel, not waking vision, not angelic visitation in broad daylight, one channel only. Dream vision. 1 Enoch chapter 83, verses 2 and 3. The first vision came when I was learning to write in the house of my grandfather Mahalalel. Enoch is a child. He receives a vision of the heavens collapsing, the earth being swallowed, falling into a great abyss. He wakes in terror. His grandfather does not comfort him. His grandfather does not say it was just a dream. His grandfather says, "Of grave moment is thy dream vision." He treats the dream as information. The household receives it as data. The sleeping mind produced something that the waking community accepted as real intelligence about the state of the world. The sleeping mind was a functioning channel. It was the one interface the judgment never closed. Raphael sealed Azazel. Michael sealed Semjaza. The gates between the realms were shut. The physical crossing was blocked. But the channel that opens when you close your eyes was never mentioned in the judgment. No angel was assigned to seal it. No order was given to close it. It was left running. 10 abilities stripped, each one catalogued with its angel and its verse. The being described in 1 Enoch 69, verse 11, the one created exactly like the angels with death, unable to touch it, was dismantled from both directions until it was unrecognizable. But the last channel was never closed, and the text calls what it delivers visions. You will use it tonight. Tell me where you are watching from. Drop a comment, and subscribe if you want to keep finding out what else this text says, because it has more to say, and we are not done with it.